Okay. Hey guys, how's it going? Michael Troy here. Very excited today. We're here with Matthew Sardo from Monkeys Fighting Robots and varied career in comic books, who has just launched his new Kickstarter campaign. Very excited about it. A very cool event. It's the Indie Creators Con Kickstarter. So welcome, Matt. It's nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I know that I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast, so matching up times. I appreciate it.
Uh, Yeah, I know. I'm glad I'm here and not there because like I'm an early person, so I'm always trying to do it as early as possible. And if I had to wait for people to be like 3 hours ahead of me, like I don't know if I could handle that or not, or behind or whatever. It's confusing to me, but here we are, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, your career in comics, your interest in comics, your history with comics.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a big long question. I mean, the biggest thing is I owned a comic book store in Chicago, about a mile north of Wrigley Field, and that was open from 2006 to like 2011. And that was like the greatest thing ever, was having that comic book store and having all the people come through always smiling. Nobody ever came to the comic book store upset, or if they did, they left like happy, because they just found something to enjoy. And then once I got married, my wife and I decided to move to Florida, so I we shut down the store and everything like that. But I've always missed, hosting events and like doing things. Like we did a winter con every year. It was always like the weekend before the Super Bowl, where there was nothing going on in Chicago and it was the deep freeze. But we'd always do this winter con where we probably had like 20 plus creators come down over 2 days. And it was a great event and people loved it and people were excited, because it was this dead time of winter in Chicago. And there was like this one like little moment at this comic book store where things were like nice and it wasn't cold out.
Especially in Chicago, the wind belt of the country, right?
Yeah.
Um, what was the name, out of curiosity, of your comic book shop?
It was called The Comic Vault, and
Hmm.
we got nominated for 2 Eisners. We never won, but we at least got nominated, so that was kinda cool. And then when I moved down to Florida, I went into, like, sports talk radio, and I covered, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Bucks, the Rays, all the sports teams, and then went to the Super Bowl and the MLB All-Star Game and interviewed all those people in there, and that's where I started getting into, like, interviewing celebrities as well, and the comic book movies were starting to boom. So I started going down to Miami to do press junkets down there and everything, and that was like really cool. And I was looking at the place that I was working for. It was a mom and pop radio station, or it was privately owned radio station, and the guy was crazy. He was crazy. I mean, you got to be crazy to like own your own like big corporation kind of thing. But he like micromanaged like nobody's business, and then that's when I was like, "Oh, man, I just need this." I was the digital creator there, and I did all their, website and trained everybody and, helped this radio station, make the transition to digital where we are now. And it was, like, early stages of doing that. And so I was like, "I can do this on my own and cover things I like to do," because they were wanting to get really political and all that crazy stuff down in Florida, and I was just like, "No, this is not what I wanna be part of," kinda thing. And so that's when I started Monkeys Fighting Robots. I quit my job and I started Monkeys Fighting Robots. And we initially started covering everything, movies, craft beer. We were trying to be like the catch all pop culture website. But over time, we started in 2015. So over 8 years, we've now refined it into like just covering comic books and talking about like stuff that we enjoy and trying to put like positive stuff out into the world.
So basically, Monkeys Fighting Robots is a comic book news website.
Yeah, we review and we do long form articles and kind of discussions, and we've had podcasts in the past and everything like that. And then the pandemic hit. And so this is kind of where the generous genesis of the Indie Comics Creator Con comes from. Is I was talking with Jamie Jones, who used to live in Florida across the street from me, and he used to be like my sounding board, and we used to talk about shop all the time, and that was great when we lived next door to each other. I miss him so much. But I wanted to do a convention in St. Pete, just a small convention in St. Pete. and I found this place kind of by the Rays Stadium, and I put a deposit down and I signed the papers. And 2 weeks or maybe even 2 days later, the world shut down from the pandemic, and I was like, ah. And so that was really depressing and everything like that. And then I found the kayfabe ringside seats group right around that time as well. And that's how I know you, seen your work, and how I've met so many like amazing people. I don't think I've met anybody. I don't think, but I've talked to so many amazing people through that group. And then that's where we started the Monkeys Fighting Robots magazine. I was like, oh, I can't do a convention, so let's put a convention in a book and put that out in the world. And that was 3 years ago now, I think, when that started, when we did our first Kickstarter for the magazine, and that was really successful. And so then the pandemic happened, and in the turmoil of all that, we moved from Florida to Connecticut. And so now I've been up here for about a year, and I was like, okay, let's get this convention back together. And so we were brainstorming different ideas. Back then it was the St. Pete Indie Comic Expo, Spice, which was kind of funny. And Jamie even did a poster for us. So if you have the first issue or the second issue of the magazine, I think you'll see the poster. But so then I just started meeting some people over here the past year, and started finding out where the indie scene was, or the art scene was, in Connecticut. And New Haven by Yale seems to be like the art center. And it's also close enough from New York City to where somebody could hop on a train and come up from the city to go to the event. So I found the venue. It took me a long time to find a venue. Southern Connecticut State University has like a great exposition hall, and then they have like a nice theater. And so I met with them, and we signed papers, and now here we are. We're trying to get this show going.
That's awesome. I was there any desire to have it be like the Monkeys Fighting Robots convention? Was that ever talked about, or is it just completely separate from that, you think? Or
I think it's more of the like evolution, kind of like where I wanted to go. Building. Like over since I had my comic book store, I've realized that like retail's really tough. So I
Mhm.
never really wanted to like open up another comic book store, even though I like really jonesed for that new comic book day and having people come through my door excited to talk about comic books and excited to get comic books. Like that feeling as a retailer is amazing. And it's, there's some really special moments that I had in the comic book store, and I would love to recreate those. But retail is really tough, and I know where my abilities lie. Um, what I'm good at, and what I think I've established the evolution, is like promotion and planning, and getting a group of people together and having a great time. I mean, like that's a skill that I've established through my years of being a bartender, and being just the guy who was like, okay, let's get the group together and do something fun. When I had the comic book store in Chicago, I was able to get the IMAX theater, which was downtown, to let us see The Dark Knight a week before it came out. And
Wow.
it was like 500, and I think it was like 550 seats, and it was probably the zenith of amazing things that have happened to me at the comic book store, was having 500 people that you kind of knew that were all into comic books. Like nobody was not into comic books in that room. And then seeing it a week before it came out, because nobody really knew what The Dark Knight was going to be like with the Joker and everything like that. Like
Right.
everybody had expectations, but nobody really knew. And since it was also filmed in Chicago, wow, I'm even getting goosebumps talking about it. It's kind of funny.
It's,
But
I mean, that's, I'm almost getting goosebumps myself. I mean, that sounds like quite an event.
yeah, and it was really amazing. And I was like, oh man, I just need to do more stuff like this. Even back then, I was like, how do I get this group of people together that are like-minded and like really just want to enjoy each other? And that's kind of what I want to do with like indie Indie Comics Creator Con because like everybody, all the creators that are coming in are from the Ringside Seats group, and there's people coming from Canada, California, the Southern Belt, the Midwest, like and then the local area as well. Like it's going to be crazy. I think once we get everybody in the same room and we're all like, "Hey man, I know you from this." And like because we like I said, we really haven't met each other, you know.
Yeah, I know it's weird because it's like I've done a couple of interviews recently and with people that I've known like since, pretty much, I mean, it's funny we talk about, the shutdown and everything. I think that was very, like lucrative for a lot of people, or actually a catalyst for a lot of creativity. I know it's when I started my YouTube channel. It's also when I found the kayfabe group and met so many people. So it's weird, like 2+ years later, it's like I know I've seen your name forever, and now just finally talking to you. And yeah, it will be weird. I mean, hopefully, I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off, but I would love to make it to the IndieCon. I'm contributing to the Kickstarter and getting a ticket either way because I figure it's like it would be a great memento just to have the ticket, well worth the measly price of $15, which we will talk about the Kickstarter in a second. But yeah, so I just think it's really cool. Leah, like you said, it's like it'll be weird to like walk into a room and just see people for the first time that you almost talk to on a daily basis through, private message, or just feel like a part of their life or their Kickstarter or their project or anything like that. So I think it's a great opportunity. And I think the fun you seem to want to put into it is very welcome and like needed in the comic book industry. Comics should be fun, is like trying to reignite that mantra. You know what I mean? And I was very excited to see all the posters that a lot of my colleagues have done for your convention. Beautiful art by Tony McMillan, Sam J. Royale, um, Marty Keene, and others, of course. But so I think it'll be like really exciting. Like what a great event. Now it's a 1-day event, and it must be a very modest venue because the Kickstarter is only asking for $5,000, which I thought was very modest. Like it seems like it would be such a huge undertaking and an expensive thing to pull off a convention, but maybe you can shed some light on that.
I mean, one of the reasons why we did pick the school is because it's a government building, a state building. It's not as expensive as a convention center, and then also doesn't fall under the like union rules where you need like certain things. And then the school comes with like they have their own police presence, they have their own social security, they have their own like ambulance or first aid. So those are all expenses that that would normally have to pay for if I was at a convention center as well. And then they have all their tables and chairs, which so they have a lot of things on site that made it more affordable. And for this Kickstarter, I wanted it to be more of like a kickoff of what we were doing, and because the funds raised from this will kind of go towards promoting it and packing the house, and outside after the Kickstarter, and also like finding our guest of honor and flying them in and paying for those expenses as well. So like that's the point. That's why it's kind of like a modest amount right there. I mean, we still got a ways to go to get to where we want to go. And I think I definitely know we're going to get there because I know there's an excitement for this. I just got to figure out how to like translate that into people like clicking and buying their ticket, because you're buying a ticket in advance. And sometimes people, will always want to, we're slackers,
I know it's funny. Like I can relate to that. Like one day I'm like a massive producer, and then like the next day I can barely get out of bed. So I don't, you know what I mean? It's like finding that balance of like output, but I don't know. Well, I know how to generate interest. This is where we'll reveal the secret guest of honor to be Alan Moore that you're flying in. Just kidding. How
Oh man,
crazy
that
would
would be
that
crazy. I'm trying to think. For me, I would love to just like have Bill Sienkiewicz be there. I think that would be my personal,
be? Yeah.
like he's we have like loose connections, but I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to motivate him to fly from California to Connecticut in the winter, but I'll do my best.
I know I've like really, really, really like he's like one of the top people I would love to interview for my show. I have zero like connection to him. And honestly, like if I did interview him, I would probably be so like starstruck. Like I'm not often starstruck, but he's just been so important to my artistic comic book journey, like forever. Like I just love his art so much.
And it's funny for me when I was a kid, reading GI Joe books and stuff like that, and I was reading that, and I like, kind of went into Spider Man, and then I remember like running into a New Mutants book as a kid, and I was like, "What is this?" And like I was like, I didn't like it at all, But now as an adult, I'm like, "This is amazing! Like, there's so much to this."
Yeah, I guess I was just that weirdo who saw it and was like immediately blown away and just like couldn't believe that I was actually in a comic book and just like so excited about it. But it was a little jarring at first. I have to say, yeah, that is kind of weird because I was like, my first thought was like, well, Bill Sienkiewicz is so freaking mainstream. That seems like an odd choice for an indie creator con. However, like he's so punk rock in his roots, you know what I mean? Like he was very like people hated his work and he just I don't know, he just was made such a commitment to his talent that people couldn't, finally had to embrace it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess if I have to like align with being like indie only, I mean, oh man, that'd be tough. That'd be tough. I mean, it's all about the people I kind of want to like meet and hang out with. Like Kevin Eastman. Wouldn't mind like spending a day with him and being like, hey, because I've met him at San Diego Comic Con and I went to a couple panels and he always seems like a jazz guy, like excited for comics and things like that. And always positive. Tim Seeley's another person that when I lived in Chicago, I got to know him and whenever I was like negative about the industry, he was always like positive, and he was like always a positive light in the comic book industry. And now that he's got Local Man, which is going crazy, which is kind of like fitting to like the kayfabe group, the '90s, hero, but now kind of thing. Like it kind of like works. I'm trying to think of who else is out there. I mean, Kirkman, he's like the epitome of like rich indie guy, you know. Any of the founders of Image Comics, those would be really cool. I mean, Silvestri and Mark Silvestri and his wife are amazing. Because I went to the Image Expo for the 20th anniversary. It was in Oakland, California. I think it was the 20th anniversary. No, 90, 2010. It might have been the 25th anniversary of that. I don't know exactly when it was. It was in the 2010 area. But then I got to like meet like, that's where I interviewed Todd McFarlane and Silvestri. I'm trying to think of who else there. Jonathan Hickman was there. All the big creators were there. Brubaker was there. He was an interesting person to talk with and stuff. And he would be a good guest to have because like I look at him as more of like a detective novel writer as more of a than a comic book writer. Just the way the stuff he puts out. Like so when I interview him, he seems to come from a different space. I mean, I'm sure that when you've interviewed people, so like you're like when you put them on the spectrum of comic book, creators, like okay, they fit over here, a little over here. Like Todd McFarlane's really intense and all about business, so he's kind of like over on this side of the chart where like Hickman is like super heady. And if I like, I feel like he's got a stack of like popular mechanics just sitting on his a desk, like that kind of person. And then like a Scott Snyder, he's where would I put Scott? I don't know. I know like Tom King, like he's interesting because he's got like his history with the CIA and he brings a lot of baggage to his art, like emotional baggage to his writing. And you can feel that just which is insane and good. But I don't know. There's a lot of good people that could come.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like let's see, like Don Simpson might be a good person to have. Let's see, Gary Carlson and Chris Ecker from Big Bang Comics, of course, one of the longest running independent comic book companies that, I just finished. I'm working on my anthology, and I have a lot of artists who are actually, Sam J. Royale, let's see, Marty Keene, and Tony McMillan. All of your poster artists have contributed to my book. I also love that kind of like overlap with this community as well. You know what I mean? It's like I've worked on fan projects, I've worked on non-fan projects, I'm doing things. And, it's like I've been exposed to so many great artists and talents and books through other people's Kickstarters and other people's just like self-published books. So yeah, I think it's going to be an amazing event. Like definitely like a once in a lifetime experience.
Is your Kickstarter still going on, the Big Bang, or did that wrap up?
It's not. It wrapped. What month are we in? August 17th.
We're September 1st right now.
Right. So it wrapped
crazy.
like 17th, and we were 150% funded. I'm happy to say. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
on finishing the book, and we're going to send it off to the printer at the end of September. So hopefully we'll have it by like October, by the end of October.
That's great. That's amazing. I saw that pop up and I was like, what is this? And then just the history of Big Bang is pretty amazing and stuff like that.
Yeah. There's so many like great, independent books out right now. I'm glad to know you're like in New Haven, or you're in Connecticut now. That explains why the convention is in Connecticut, because I'm glad you moved from Florida, so it's not going to be in Florida. I lived in St. Pete actually for a few years. Um, it's right before 2001 for a couple years, and right around the time actually the Devil Rays first started. I think I definitely went to a Devil Rays game, so that was kind of interesting living in St. Pete. Did you live in
No,
Tampa?
I lived in St. Pete, and the
Yeah,
St. Pete was amazing. St. Pete is a like great town, and it's
yeah.
we moved there in 2012, and we were there for 10 years, and I got to watch the city like just evolve and grow, and they're kind of like a little Miami now with all their high rises and everything. And when I went there, the restaurants were horrible. You had to put salt and pepper on everything, and then by the time I left, you had like award-winning restaurants, that have gone in, So it was really cool. So yeah, right now I live about 45 minutes from New Haven in a small town, and it's awesome. It's really cool. I like it. It's the first time I lived in Oakland for 7 years. I lived in Chicago for 10 years. I lived in St. Pete for 10 years. So I finally got back to like my small town roots. And there's some things I'll always miss about cities. And but I'm still 2 hours away from Chicago and 2 hours away from Boston. So I can like hop and go away. I can, I'm going to New York Comic Con, which I never did when I was in Florida. So I mean, like, this is fine.
Yeah, it'll work out.
Yeah, it'll definitely work out.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Kickstarter, since that is the main reason we are here. You launched a couple of days ago, but it seems like you're off to a really good start. I feel, like I said, that I think the budget of $5,000, or the goal of $5,000, is pretty modest. I think that's completely doable. I think you're off to a great start. One of the things that I was thinking is like, it might be hard to get people to get on board if they don't plan on attending the convention. So, but I feel like they should, because you could still get a poster or a button or some sort of momentum, and just like a great keepsake from what I think is going to be the start of a major like convention, indie con. Like I think it's such a great idea. Like we need more of those like that. So tell us like about like maybe some of the rewards, or why people should get on board and support this, even if they're unable to attend it.
Well, if you're not able to attend it, and I mean, I definitely think you should. If you're a fan of kayfabe ringside seat group, like this is all your friends. So, and I think there's what? How big is that group now? 5,000 people, 3,000, somewhere around there. It's pretty crazy. Um, but if you can't attend the event, we do have a couple different tiers for people that can't attend it. We have, I mean, first we have like a really cool pin that we made. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, that came out with Sam J. Royal's logo on it, and it
Very
just
cool.
it looks really cool. Um, we have like you can get a ticket from afar, which will keep you up to date with what's going on. Where you'll get like information before the event, you'll get information afterwards. And I'm working on recording the panels in a way that the people that get a ticket that that don't a virtual ticket, they'll be able to see the videos. Like I'll send them a link and it'll be like private, and then like so that the people that got a virtual ticket can see those first. And I think that's going to be I think the floor is going to be amazing, but I also think the panel situation that we're going to have there is going to be really cool. I think there's going to be really good discussions going on there, and it's
I
a
actually,
200
that's
seat theater. It's going to be really cool.
That's like a huge draw, actually, because I know that one of the things I do not look forward to at conventions is like waiting in lines or like being in crowded rooms and stuff like that. So, if for all you shut-ins out there and you know, like introverts, like that's the perfect route to go. Like that might even be a better way to experience it.
And then we're in. I didn't want to do a program because I feel like programs are boring. In my opinion, of conventions, somebody will hand me a program, I'll kind of flip through it, and then like I'm done with it afterwards. So I came up with this idea of a yearbook. Since we're going to do this convention every year, like we'll do a yearbook, and so all the creators that are at the event will get 2 pages where there'll be like a picture, a bio, a QR code that you can use your phone to like go to their website or Instagram, wherever you want to go if you're inspired to, and then a page and a half of like their work, whether it be artwork, prose, or what have you. And if they want to submit more, they can. So the plan, the bare minimum is the book's going to be 150 pages. But in my head, I think it could be 200 pages because we have it. Artist Alley is 50 people plus. I think it might be 60. And then we're going to have somewhere between like 30 to 40 like guests. So if every Artist Alley person gets 2 pages, that's 100 pages right there. And then, some of the writers from Monkeys Fighting Robots are going to do some indie articles as well. So it'll be a pretty solid book. I think it'll be one of my favorite books that I've created. And Jeffrey Krawczak did another amazing cover for it. He's from the group in the Kayfabe group as well. Um, and and I think it'll be my fifth magazine that I'll publish. I've published one, two, three comic books, one graphic novel, and the 4 magazines. That's all I put. So I think I'll finally figure out like how to print a book properly with like the appropriate, because I didn't realize this, and it probably would make sense. The thicker your book is, the thinner the paper needs to be. So it like opens, like because the last do I have one? I don't have one right in front of me. But the last Monkeys Fighting Robots magazine was pretty big. I think it ended up like 72 pages. And it would have benefited if the paper was a little bit thinner weight wise. So these are the
Mm.
things you learn making comic books.
Yeah, good tip, good tip. Taking mental notes. Um, Now is the yearbook is obviously a part of the one of the tiers of the Kickstarter, or
Yes, you can get a digital copy of the yearbook, or you can get a physical copy of the yearbook. So that's if I think that's the best way to support this if you're not going to be able to attend the event, because you'll be able to have all the creators in your hand that were at the event.
yeah,
And
like because if you're like a fan of these people and things like that, I mean that sounds like something you're going to want either way, whether you're there or not, because it's going to include, original content and things like that. So I think that that is a very smart idea, and it's very much in line with sort of the indie spirit in a way.
yeah, I definitely wanted to like have somebody go home with something published, because we are like small press, do it yourself publishers kind of thing. Like it just makes sense to have something like a keepsake like that. But again, like we have the pin, we have 5 prints that we did, and they all came out amazing. You mentioned some of the people. Pat Rooks did one, Jamie Jones did one as well, Ben Granoff, and these are all people from the Ringside Seats group as well. What else is there that we have going on? We are doing, because the plan for this convention is for it to be a 1 day this year, or 1 day for the first show. Next year it'll be a 2 day show at the same venue, and then third year we'll move to a bigger venue. Like that's the growth plan for it. So one of the reward tiers is a lifetime ticket, where you just buy it now and you're good for the rest of your time on this earth to go to the show whenever you want. And we've already sold a few of those, and I think those are like our extreme, patrons of saints. Our extreme patron saints of DIY comic books and indie creator stuff. Like those people believe in us, and I really appreciate all the support.
Well, and it could be a hella smart investment too. Could you imagine if like Disney World was started with a Kickstarter and one of the tiers was like a lifetime membership? I mean, that would have, you know what I mean? Talk about getting in on the ground floor. This is a perfect opportunity for you, IndieCon, enthusiasts, to have like a lifetime member. How much is the lifetime ticket?
It's 150.
See, that's super cheap. I mean, the tickets are only $15 for, a single day. So that's like 10 conventions right there.
Right. And it also comes with like the yearbook and all the prints and the pins. So like you get all the swag as well too.
Oh,
So yeah.
Then people need to get on that tier right there. That sounds like the golden goose egg to me.
Well, we hope so. I mean, that's the thing, is it's basically every dollar from this Kickstarter is going to go to like promoting it and making sure that, the creators that believe in me, I fill up that room with people that want to be part of this show and want to like buy books and support indie creators. And that's the balance of being like a convention director. It's like you want to bring 3 people through the door, you want to bring in some amazing creators, and you want to keep everybody happy. Creator, you definitely need, and the way you keep creators happy is they go home with money in their pocket.
Right. So, well, it sounds amazing. I'm very excited about it. Is there anything else you want to tell us about yourself, any of your projects you have coming up, or just this Kickstarter campaign in general before we wrap this up?
Well, Kickstarter campaigns are a roller coaster of emotions. So anybody getting ready to do a Kickstarter campaign for the first time, like it's definitely a marathon. Kickstarters are. And I definitely know that I came out of the gate on the first day like sprinting. And I was like, I'm gonna run as fast as I can. And then I was like, day 2 came around. I was like, oh man, I probably should have paced myself a little bit. But then like you get another wind, and I think the coolest thing is seeing. I think this is like my 6th Kickstarter. Is seeing the same names back the project again, and you're like, oh wow, these people believe in me, and that kind of gives you more energy, or restocks your energy to kind of keep going, pushing out, and be like, okay, these people believe in me. Like I gotta go like recruit other people or get other people to see what I've done, and like see the vision. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like seeing the vision of what we're trying to do. I mean, like this isn't just me trying to make an independent comics Creator Con. This is a group of people. This is a movement kind of thing. So getting people to see that vision is interesting, and then just every time the backer clicks in, you're like, oh look, you get like pumped a little bit more in each day kind of thing. Kickstarters are so emotionally weird kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't. My Big Bang Project was my first Kickstarter that I actively participated in, and it is a mind fuck for sure. It is like a roller coaster of emotions, and 1 minute you're up and 1 minute you're down, and you're like you said, you're like, oh my gosh, there's nobody's gonna give me any money. And then you see a dime and you burst into tears because somebody believed in you. And yes, I mean, I have to say, like, we reached our goal like about halfway through. And while I was extremely relieved and like but I didn't feel like, oh, okay, good. I don't have to do anything now. You know what I mean? Like there's still that like it's like having a newborn or something like that. Like it's crazy. So yeah, I think that definitely you know, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I'll probably be part of one again. And I mean, that's what you do if you have a successful Kickstarter, you do another one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool that like Kickstarter has become the crowdfunding is this platform where people can like produce their own things and it can make them happen. I mean, like I talk about this. I mean, like I'm an 80s kid and I got into comic books late 80s, early 90s. But one of my friends is a high school teacher and he had their final project for art school was they made a comic book and he got it printed and handed it to him. And like if I was in high school in the 80s and somebody handed me a comic book that we made, that would have totally changed my life. I don't know if I would have made comic books or not, but like just the ability that like I could do it, completely would change my perception on the comic book industry. Because at that point in time in the 80s and 90s, like if you wanted to make your own comic book, you were basically going to like a copy machine and stapling it together and stuff like that. That's how you were doing it. But like now with printing, like you could put something out that looks phenomenal in and you can get it turned around in 2 weeks. You could have it in your hands like a fully formed comic book. And I think that's amazing. The time we are in right now for indie comic books is bonkers cool because like anybody can create a comic book now, and it's easy, it's accessible, and there's no excuse for you not to create a comic book.
100%. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and it does seem like that a lot of people are doing that. Like, people do realize this. And I like a lot of the books I review for my channel are like self-made or independently published. And I love, giving the spotlight to people who, because it isn't easy. You know what I mean? It's not easy for Marvel and DC to do it. You know what I mean? So if you're like a one-man show, it's like you deserve such props and credit for it. But it's like you look at somebody like Marty Keene and like he is producing like major amounts of work. He's doing painting. He made a diorama of one of his like a scene from one of his comic books. Like it's crazy, but it's like it's that kind of drive and creativity and output that just makes indie comics like so much fun and so worth looking into. You know what I mean?
Definitely, definitely. And thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. It was such a pleasure to finally meet you. Hopefully, I'll get to meet you in person. Hopefully, I'll make it to IndieCon. I would love to. It sounds like it's going to be a major event, and if nothing else, a hella fun party. I wish you major success on this Kickstarter. I feel like you're off to a great start. Like I said, the goal is modest, and people watching, you should contribute just, if nothing else, to support just such a great cause for such a great comics enthusiast. I thank you for doing this and putting this together. Like any sort of thing to propel interest in comics, especially shedding a spotlight on the indie scene is just like a good thing to do.
Yes, agreed.
All right, guys. So get out there, support that Kickstarter. There will be a link in the description. You still have plenty of time and make this a big, huge, successful event. Anything you want to say before we go, Matt?
Um, Thank you. That's basically it. Is you said most of it. I want to shine a light on the indie creators that have inspired me, and I think we're going to do that. And I appreciate everybody who backs the project, and you're going to have a great time.
Awesome. All right, guys. So get out there and support this Kickstarter. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Turn on the notifications so I can bring you updates on IndieCon, the future of IndieCon, the most exciting new comic book convention coming your way in March. What is the date of the convention? March 8th?
March 9th, Saturday,
March,
March 9th.
Saturday, March 9th to 2024. Put it on your calendar, y'all.